Welcome to Fact/Fiction. You're about to be presented with 4 well-known and obscure urban legends, folklore or conspiracy theories, as well as one tall tale submitted by a subscriber. Your task is to simply decide whether the stories are fact, fiction, or inconclusive. So let's begin, shall we? The Uncanny Bride. In March of 1930, in the town of Chihuahua in Mexico, a bridal store known as La Popular, owned by Pasquale unveiled an outstanding new window display, at the centre of which stood a highly detailed mannequin featuring one of the finest dresses from La Popular's latest spring-summer collection. The window display quickly caught the attention of locals, who gazed in awe at the beautiful gown adorning the mannequin. But their amazement soon turned to mystery when some locals began to realise the mannequin's uncanny resemblance to the beautiful yet tragic daughter of La Popular's owner, who had only recently passed away on her wedding day after being bitten by a highly venomous black widow spider. Rumours soon began to spread, and eventually the gossip turned to accusations as locals realised that the reason the mannequin so precisely resembled Esparza's daughter was because it was in fact the mummified corpse of the tragic bride.
Blood oranges. In 2014, news began to spread online of an alarming discovery made by Algerian customs officials, who were investigating a suspicious shipment of oranges from Libya. On the surface, the fruit appeared to be ordinary, seemingly harmless oranges, but those taking a closer look noticed what appeared to be multiple punctures on the orange's tough outer skin, and upon slicing the fruit in two, a dark secret was to be revealed. Expecting to find nothing unusual, officers instead discovered that all of the oranges they had cut open contained a strange red liquid that disturbingly resembled blood, and as a result the entire shipment was sent away for forensic analysis. And it wasn't long before labs confirmed that the red liquid was in fact blood, specifically HIV-positive human blood, which was assumed to have been injected into the oranges, creating a very crude and incredibly dangerous biological weapon. The entire shipment was destroyed. However, with reports of consumers finding similarly tainted fruit in their shopping, it is believed that customs had discovered just one of many shipments containing the lethal fruit. And as a result, the Algerian Office for Public Health released an emergency recall notice for all citrus fruit for fear of a mass outbreak of HIV.
The Mad Gasser of Mattoon. In 1944, residents of Mattoon, Illinois, were terrorised by a dark prowler who had become known as the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. Throughout late August and early September, multiple victims came forward claiming to have been attacked with gas after experiencing strange, sweet odours in their homes, or after smelling strange pieces of discarded white cloth found on their property. The victims reported feeling faint, nauseous and weak in the legs, and would experience burning sensations on their lips and throat before suffering from violent coughing fits and vomiting, and in several cases the victims reported witnessing a tall, thin man dressed in dark clothing and carrying a flit gun. The local media immediately began reporting on the incidents, and whilst the local police were initially sceptical of the attacks, the FBI were ultimately involved in the investigation. However, despite terrorising Mattoon for a fortnight, with little physical evidence to identify a suspect, the Mad Gasser evaded capture and was never brought to justice.
Eagle River Vampires. In May of 2007, a homeless woman named Irene Allen stumbled into Eagle River Memorial Hospital in Alaska, reporting that she had been attacked by a group of what she described as vampire children. Irene was visibly shaken and covered in her own blood and was immediately admitted. Irene's wounds were non-life-threatening, consisting of only superficial cuts, and as a result, the hospital staff did not take her story of vampire children seriously. But the police were informed to investigate if Irene had in fact been attacked, or to determine if her injuries were self-inflicted. Irene claimed that she was sleeping when a group of children, 1 boy and 3 girls, woke her and offered her $20 for some of her blood. Irene refused and chased the children away before laying back down to sleep. However, the children returned, this time with a bottle of alcohol, and asked her again for some of her blood. Irene took the bottle from them but told them to go home and again refused to give them any of her blood. Insisting they wouldn't take no for an answer, the children attacked Irene, pinning her down while the boy cut her multiple times with a small pocket knife. The girls then pulled out handfuls of cotton balls and began blotting up the blood and putting them in a Ziploc bag, before all 4 children started licking her wounds, telling Irene that they were vampires and they were sorry, but they needed to feed. Although the police determined an attack took place, subsequent investigation failed to locate the suspects. But the residents of Eagle River speculated that the children were students from Gruning Middle School, where an alleged vampire trend was in full swing.
A leap of faith. Gary Hoy was a 38-year-old law professional. His work as a corporate and securities specialist in the Toronto-based law firm Holden Day Wilson LLP led to him being described by his peers as one of the best and brightest. But his co-workers also tragically discovered Hoy wasn't only confident in his ability as a legal specialist. During his time at Holden Day Wilson offices, located on the 24th floor of the Toronto Dominion Bank Tower, Hoy had developed a fondness for demonstrating his confidence in the superior quality of the windows of his firm's offices. Eventually, Hoy would become notorious amongst his colleagues for running towards the windows before leaping directly at them, only to bounce off without calamity. However, this confidence would eventually be Hoy's literal downfall, when on the 9th of July 1993, Hoy would demonstrate his party trick to a group of visiting law students. Hoy took his usual running jump and hurled himself at the window, landing safely back on his feet on the office floor. Another successful performance. But Hoy didn't stop there. Determined to prove the strength of the windows in the small conference room, Hoy again hurled himself towards another window, only this time with fatal consequences. The students looked on in horror as the window gave way and Hoy fell 24 stories to his untimely death in the courtyard below. Fiction. Whilst La Popula does display a very realistic mannequin in their window, it has never been formally confirmed whether the mannequin, known locally as La Pasqualita or Little Pasquala, is in fact Pasquale Esparza's daughter. but most experts agree that the mannequin could not possibly be preserved remains due to the extensive maintenance and highly controlled atmospheric conditions required to maintain a corpse in such pristine condition. The legend began when locals noticed not only the mannequin's resemblance to Pasquale's daughter, but also the incredible attention to detail that the mannequin displays, allegedly even featuring varicose veins on its legs. As of this year, La Pasqualita has stood on display in the shop window of La Popular for 89 years, attracting hundreds of tourists every year, fascinated by the macabre legend of La Pasqualita.
Fiction. This horrifying story is thankfully fictional, and was nothing more than a twisted hoax that surfaced on an online message board in 2014, before eventually finding its way to Facebook in 2015, where the rumour was able to spread around the world. Similar myths include HIV-tainted bananas, bottles of ketchup, and fast food contaminated with human bodily fluids by disgruntled employees. Thankfully, HIV transmission from contaminated food product is highly unlikely, due to the virus's inability to survive for long outside of the human body, and there have been no recorded cases of malicious contamination of any food product with tainted human blood or any other bodily fluids.
Inconclusive. To state that the Mad Gasser was never apprehended makes the assumption that the attacker even existed at all. Thomas Wright, Commissioner of Public Health, stated that while some gas attacks could have occurred, the majority were likely the result of mass hysteria. And Chief of Police C.E. Cole stated that the symptoms reported by the victims were likely caused by pollution from nearby diesel engine company Atlas Imperial. Cole claimed that the poisoning was likely the result of the engine manufacturer's use of the industrial solvent trichloroethylene, a claim denied by Atlas Imperial, who stated that they only used very small amounts of the solvent, and were it to be this kind of poisoning, then surely all of their workers would have also suffered similar symptoms as the victims. To this day, the case of the Mad Gasser of Mattoon remains a mystery.
Fiction. This story was in fact entirely a work of fiction and was submitted by fellow content creator and subscriber Penny Tailsup. You can find her channel linked in the description below.
Fact. Whilst this story is a popular urban legend, you may be surprised to learn that it is 100% true. To this day, no one is quite sure why Gary Hoy had chosen to take such an interest in demonstrating the strength of his windows at his office. But what we do know is that whilst demonstrating his favourite stunt, the second window Hoy had chosen popped out of its frame from the force of the impact. And as a result, both Hoy and the intact pane of glass plummeted to the ground. The tragedy hit Holden Day Wilson hard, and despite bearing no fault in the tragic accident, the incident would become one of the major contributing factors, leading to the law firm's closure just 3 years later. So how did you do? Were you fooled by the vampire children? Or perhaps you took a leap of faith on the uncanny bride? Post your scores out of 5 in the comments below, and make sure to keep your eyes peeled for the next episode of Fact/Fiction. I'd like to say a special thank you to Jar19Lab for appearing in this episode. You can find his channel linked in the description below. Make sure you check out his fantastic series Guide to Survive, where you can learn how to survive encounters with all manner of dark and sinister beings, including the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. Also, make sure you check out Penny Tailsup, who contributed her tall tale of the Eagle River vampires. Penny narrates her own original horror stories, combined with speed paints of her own original art. I personally recommend the phenomenal series Lily Madwhip, written by William Dauphin and superbly narrated and animated by Penny and a host of fantastic guest narrators. You can also find Penny's channel linked in the description below. And if you'd like to submit your own tall tale for a future episode of Fact/Fiction, you can do so at the official Things That Go Bump website